previously when you were going to create new sprites, you create them a bit like you have this label. You can go let sprite equal sk sprite node, etc. Okay, but we're going to have a sprite for each of the grid items, which makes it a little bit more complicated. And when you want to configure it, you kind of want to have a separate model which you can manipulate. So we're going to look at that now. So I'm going to create a new file, new file. Now I'm going to select Cocoa Touch class. We're going to select a sprite file. Okay, and I'm going to call this sprite. I'm going to make sure it goes into our project. Okay, so now we've created a new blank Swift file which will allow us to manipulate. So the first thing we can do is import SpriteKit. That allows us to create all the features, and we're going to create a new instance of the SK Sprite node. Okay, so class touchpad, that's the name of it, and it's going to be of type SK Sprite nodes. The first feature which we want to add, which isn't currently there, is we're going to have a status, and this is what's going to be manipulated each time we change it. So for example, if it's an X, it'll be an X. If it's an O, it'll be an O. And to start off, it's going to be a little dash. That way we can check, if it's a dash, then you can play that spot. If not, then you cannot. So first, with like all classes, we need to initialize them. So our texture will be SK Sprite texture. Our size will be CG size. Our color will be UI color. We're also going to add a new one called position, which will be a CG point. Okay, this will allow us when we create new instances of these objects, we can choose where the position is. It's just going to make it a little bit shorter when we're writing it out, as you'll see in a minute. We always need to do our super initialize. Okay, so we can initialize all of these except for the position, because that's not a standard one. And then use the self keyword to explain which instance of that property we're changing. And the last one is our position. I'm going to receive that from our position as well. Okay, so just like with your functions, this is receiving it from our parameters that have been passed through. Pause. Yes, and just make sure you spell correctly. Okay, so after we've done that, like this error is telling us now, we always need to have this required coda. So we click on that and it'll add it in for us. Another thing we need to do is to override one of the properties, which is the user interaction enabled. Okay, and we're just going to do a setter and a getter for this one. So ignore it if someone sets it, and then when we get it, it's always going to be true. Oops, sorry, I made a mistake over here. This shouldn't be override. It should just be initialize. Okay, then we need to create our touch. This is what's going to allow us to show you the different textures. Okay, so override function touches began. So first we're going to check if the user has touched this node before. Okay, so this is where we use our status. So if the status is equal to our hyphen, then the turn equals true. So the turn will just change each time a play is made. So it allows you to sort of go to the next one. It sort of creates like a game state. Okay, and then we're going to change the textures. Now hopefully you've added these textures in already from the previous video. If not, go back and watch that video and it will show you how to create and import those textures. Oops, image named. Okay, and I've named my files simply so that it's easy to change between them. Just going to print it out. It's in the console so I know what's going on. And then I'm going to change the turn to false. Else, I'm going to do the opposite. So I can copy all of this. Change this to O. Change this to O. Change my status to true. Okay, so the complete opposite of what we've done. Okay, first error we're going to have is we don't have this true created yet. Okay, so we need to go back to our game scene, and then we're going to create a method called a little property called true. Called turn. So var turn equals, and we'll start it off as false. Oh, sorry, I put it in the wrong spot. Let's just pop it at the top. That means it can be accessed across our whole program. Okay, so now we've got a little thing here. We're not displaying anything yet. In the next video, we're going to use our little model that we've just created.